Mr. Cussler.
Yes, sir.
Roger Nichols here. Thank you so much for being willing to talk with us again. You're very generous.
Oh, shucks, it's nothing.
We had so much fun, even in that brief time we talked last week, that people said, we got to have more. So, again, I do appreciate that. So many things to talk about, but one of the things I want to mention, we talked earlier about your first dive when you had to actually buy the equipment from Jacques Cousteau himself and whatnot. Are you still diving at all?
Not as much as I used to. I mean, I dive, but it's time. I'm still working, which is probably a mistake, but I do it anyway.
Oh, no,
no, I still dive when we go out. I don't go as deep as I used to, but I can still dive.
All right. I was thinking about some other authors who are also divers. Sir Arthur Clarke, over in Ceylon for many years, wrote about that.
He did.
And somebody said that Michael Crichton also wrote about and did diving himself. I'm not sure if I researched that, but
could be. I don't know.
All the cool kids dive. Is that the way it goes? So,
okay.
I want to talk about some of your past too, because there's some interesting bits we didn't get to. One of which is your first work of nonfiction, The Sea Hunters, and I've never heard of this before. Accepted as the equivalent of a doctoral dissertation and awarded a Doctor of Letters degree by State University of New York.
Yeah, what it was, the Chancellor of New York and the Board of Governors, I guess it is. I was supposed to get a what do you call it?
Honorary or degree?
Honorary, right, I'm sorry. Yeah. An honorary degree, and then at the end they told me I was getting a real one. I said, how is that possible? I didn't finish my second year of college. And they said that they used your books as your thesis. And I said, great. And so that's what it says on the certificate.
Right. Should we call you Dr. Cussler now? Is that?
Well, I never use that.
But as far as they said that this is the first time in the 138-year history of the school that they've done that. So apparently you got some friends out there.
I guess I do.
I want to talk also about the fact that you're a member of the Explorers Club, the Royal Geographic Society, American Society of Oceanographers, International Scuba Hall of Fame. You don't have time to go to meetings, do you?
No, I don't. Yeah, plus I have to be, on the book situation and tours and what have you, so there's not much time for that.
Right, and talking to silly people on the radio, on the phone. But tell us a little bit about, now I know you've got a massive plan where you're involved with working with multiple authors, Dirk Pitt, of course, Fargo Adventures, Kurt Austin, the Oregon Files, and the Isaac Bell, which we talked about, your most recent one. How do you keep all that stuff straight?
It's not easy, but my wife Janet does a marvelous job. She makes the schedule, and when the first part's due and the second, and then when it's finished and when it's the puff date. So she does a great job by backloading me to keep right on the money. But yeah, it's a little difficult because my mind isn't as sharp as it used to be, and I might forget one series. But no, we manage, and it's fun. And then the fellows we work with are just terrific.
Well, I've just got to imagine that when you get, say, another 50 pages from one of your co-conspirators there, and you open it up and go, oh boy, and read it and say, this is, and smack your lips and say, I'm going to have some fun now.
Well, most of the time, every once in a while we'll see, no, he's gone in the wrong direction. So, I mean, and then too, oftentimes, at least 3 of them, I had to redo and write the last 50 pages because they just missed out on a good ending. And, so I come in on that score anyway. So I'm still writing some, but no, I've got to keep the books, moving and working right, and something that the readers enjoy.
I think a lot of the stuff that we really get a kick out, of course, particularly with the originals, with the Dirk Pitt stuff, is kind of these kind of his either behind the scenes glimpse of big things happening or alternate histories. Actually, what would happen if this had slightly been different? And those are fascinating.
Yeah, that's fun to do. And then I like to do things that other authors don't do. For example, in Dirk Pitt, you know, I did it as just it happened one day. I was writing about Dirk Pitt with his Stutz being at a concourse meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and there was this old gray-haired fellow with a gray beard with a Hispano Suiza next to him. So he goes over and says, "Hello, my name's Dirk Pitt," and this old guy says, "Hi, I'm Clive Cussler." And I thought, "Oh my God, why did I do that? I didn't mean to." And then I thought, "Oh, what the hell? I'll leave it in." The editor didn't like it, but I figured that's tough. And so, God, I got 600 letters on that. So then I had to keep putting myself into the story as a walk-on, a cameo. And so, but it's great. People seem to, they like Hitchcock, they get so now they're waiting for me to make my appearance.
I think my favorite story about Hitchcock was the lifeboat, which there's people in a lifeboat, and he appeared. There's a newspaper in the lifeboat, and he's the before and after weight loss ad in there. That's how they got him on the lifeboat. and for those of us who are old comic book fans, Stan Lee in all the Marvel comic book movies appears somewhere with a cameo like that. So we like cameos. It's kind of a wink and a nod from the author itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah,
But you hurt me when you talk about the comic books. When I was right in that era there. I had the measles and chicken pox, and my dad would always bring me home a bunch of comic books. So I had a stack of about it measured about 4 feet when I went in the service, and I just put them in the closet, and left them. And when I came home, my mom had thrown them out, and so must have been years, must have been 30 years later, 40 years. I went into one of these stores that sells all this sort of thing, the bubblegum cards and the comic books. So I asked the fellow, I said, I remember what I had. I had the first Superman and Batman and, Captain Marvel and all this stuff. And he was jotting it down. I said, "What do you think it'd be worth today?" And he says, "Well, your mother could have been a rich woman. I figured at least $3 million."
Yeah. Well,
and of course, I faded.
Yeah, right on the spot. But what? Some of the first editions of your first books are selling for pretty good money these days. So.
Well, there's one Iceberg, which they only printed 5,000 copies and sold 3,200 of the original edition. And that one I've seen, if its sign goes for as high as $2,000, but I don't think the rest of them go for big bucks.
Well, this is what happens when you're so popular. They print millions and millions and millions of them, and we love that. We appreciate that. I have a weird question here. Do you ever look yourself up on Wikipedia and go, "Oh, they got it all wrong"?
No, not really. What was it? There was only a couple things they had wrong, which were any any big deal. But I think they had me finishing college, which I dropped out after a year and a half to go in the Air Force, and it's some little minor stuff like that. Wasn't anything.
Okay, and well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that because some people go, "Oh gosh, they get it all along altogether." What was I gonna? Oh, some other stuff here. You have an interest in trains as well. I've noticed that, or at least some of your co-authors do, because I think the very first sentence of the most recent book, in fact, Tark mentions the wheel arrangement. It's a 280 engine, so that's a little something for insiders about.
Oh, sure it is. If you know anything about engines, you know what the 2.4, 2.6, 2.4, whatever, because it's the drive wheels are the middle numbers, and then the first and the last are usually just the tugger number. I forget what they call now.
Right.
The little wheel.
Yes, right. But it's fascinating that you get that. And then one of my favorites was Night Probe, when the train goes into the water and
Hmm.
and you have to go after that. So uh, that, and I think one of the other things is your fascination with cars, of course. And you mentioned dirt driving a Stutz. You have a Stutz, right? If I don't understand.
Yes, I've got three of them.
That's. Now, do you have a favorite? You've got like something like 100 cars. Do you have a favorite?
Oh gosh, when people ask me about what's my favorite book, it's just I like them all for different
Mm-hmm.
reasons. And one car I think is great fun to drive is a 1929 Bentley. They call it a blower,
Oh yeah.
because it has a supercharger sitting out in front of the radiator. So that one's fun to drive. A lot of them really are.
Mm-hmm.
It's
The one
hard to keep your hands off of them.
in the very early James Bond books, he drives a blower Bentley, as I recall. The very one or
Yeah,
two.
I can't remember if it was a blower, but I remember he had a Bentley,
Yeah.
and the what's his name in that TV show, The Avengers, he had a Bentley.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm trying to think. I can see his face, and Diana Rigg was his cohort there, but
Right.
yeah.
Hmm.
See, now we're having fun. I I appreciate you that we can share all this stuff together. You said that you used to try to write like Alistair MacLean when you started out.
Well, he was one of the authors just like Hemingway said he used, not plagiarizing, but structuring and that sort of thing. Dostoevsky, and I don't know, the great story on Thomas Wolfe was when he was in the Merchant Marine. He was out at sea, and when they came into one dock one day, he wandered around, walked in this old bookstore, and bought this used book by James or oh God, who wrote Ulysses? His
Oh,
name
James
just
Joyce.
slips me. Yes, right.
Hmm.
And so he takes it back to the boat, and he sits there for months, and he copies it word for word.
Oh my gosh.
And it is, and then when he finished, he took this huge stack of paper and went back to the stern and threw it all overboard. And his shipmate said, "My God, after you spent months copying that thing, because James Joyce's book Ulysses is like a little telephone book."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, how could you have done that? Why?" And he turned around and he said, "Because now I know how to write a book." So authors try to sit there and do it all themselves from scratch, but the thing is, it's there. If you have let's say you have somebody that writes a genre that you fascinate or interested by,
Hmm.
and you'd like to do it. So you study their structure, their characterization, their style. How they've a and it's there. You don't have to take even a class at you know Columbia, but it's interesting. Just all you have to do is just study. What's a successful author, and what uses that he used, and different tricks and ideas. It's as I say, it's interesting. It's all there.
One of the things that talking with as many authors as I do, one of them, what they talk about the fellow sitting there in the marketplace with his little bowl with the coins in it, and he starts telling a story, and when he gets to the exciting point, he stops and kind of shakes the bowl suggestively, and people dump money in because they have to find out what happened next. And that's the whole reason for being an author, is to get people have to know what happens next.
Hmm.
And
Well, too, and then there's I guess you'd call it tricks, because so many people read at night
mhm.
in bed, and they'll reach the end of the chapter, and then they'll put the book down and turn out the light and go to sleep. So what you do there is, if the last chapter ends kind of quietly and there's not much going on, you go back and rewrite the ending of the chapter so there's something that's really intriguing. So they turn the page to the next chapter and they're hooked, for another, at least half an hour. So it's funny little things you can, you just like starting the book off. You got to start off with a bang. I remember, and I think that was the best line they said I ever used. The first line was, "The intruder came from beyond." So, and then of course the end. But you just in the last paragraph, if you just bang it all in there, that the reader just and this, particularly if you throw out a red herring where where nobody expects the villain to be the butler or
All right.
whatever. So it's great fun, that part of it.
And as a reader, it's great fun. I'll have to let you know that The Assassin, the most recent one, I spent about 4.5, 5 hours on a Sunday. Could not stop it. Thank goodness I started early enough in the afternoon. And I put it down. When you put it down and go, oh, man, that's the effect of an author's looking for. And that's exactly what we get with your books. And I do appreciate that. On behalf of your many fans, thank you, by the way.
I try.
Yeah, you do indeed. And anything particular you'd like to say to your fans out there? And I know you've got many of them in our listening audience and beyond, around the world. Here's a free stage. Go ahead, say something interesting and fantastic.
Oh, I could tell you a neat book joke.
Yes, do indeed.
Okay, there was this movie producer, and he collected books, and all the people in the production company and the studios just hated it because every time they talked to him, he'd turn the subject talk into his book collection. So this director and the actor decided to pull one off on him. So they brought in an actor from the New York stage that the producer didn't know. And so they met, at the studio commissary, and they introduced this fellow from New York as the actor's cousin from Nebraska. And so the producer sat down and he was talking, and it didn't take him 10 minutes to, I bought a first edition, Charles Dickens, David Copperfield. And so then the actor from New York, who he thought was, this cousin of the director, said, we used to have an old book down on the farm. And the producer, just to be polite, said, oh, really? What was it? He said, well, I don't remember exactly, but it was an old Bible. And the fellow said, well, that's nice. Do you remember anything about it? And he said, oh, yeah, it had all these pretty pictures and drawings in it. And, old style stuff. And so the producer's a little pricked up, so he says, well, could you remember anything about it? He said, well, that's about it. It was just pretty pictures, and it was in German. I remember that. He couldn't read much. It was in German. He said, then the producer's really getting interested, and he says, can you tell me, like who was the publisher, And the old fellow said, well, I don't remember. I think his name began with a G, and I don't remember the rest of it. And the guy said, Guggenheim, and it was a Guggenheim, anyway, Guggenheim, and he says, yeah, that's it. He says, almost. He says, oh my God, you've got a Gutenberg Bible. He said, well, I guess that's what it was. He says, oh my God. He said, I'll give you $10 million for it. He says, oh no, it's no good. He said, I threw it away. And the producer about died. He said, you threw away a Gutenberg Bible? The guy said, yeah, you wouldn't have wanted it. It wasn't worth anything. He said, what do you mean I wouldn't have wanted it? And the actor says, oh, he said, some guy by the name of Martin Luther scribbled all over it.
Oh, wow.
That's the only good book story I know.
That's a great way to wait. Oh, that's a champion. That really is. Mm-hmm. Clive Cussler, you have been a wonderful guest, and I thank you so much
thank you.
for all not only for sharing time with us today, but for all the wonderful books for all the years. Keep writing. I want you to get to that 50th anniversary in just 2 years, so we have a big, giant box set of everything. So,
Okay.
Thank you so much, sir. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.